Hey everybody, Drew here from North 40 Fly Shop in Lewiston, Idaho, here to do a little bit of tying for you today. We are going to be doing this Kiwi Muddler, that guy right there. This is an effective pattern for both smallmouth and trout, and this particular one that I'm tying today is in a rust color, of course, but you can tie it in a variety of different sizes, different colors. I may show you a couple samples of some other ones that I've tied here recently at the end of the video. But for now, we're going to do this in this rust color. I've got bass on the brain. I kind of want something crayfishy colored, and that's what we're going with. So I have pre-dressed the hook here with 025 lead wire or lead-free wire, whichever your preference. A size large gold tungsten cone from Hairline. And the hook today that I'm using is a Gamakatsu B10S in size 2. And my thread here is GSP 100 in white. You're really not going to see the thread on this. You could certainly use another color if you want to, but the GSP really is key here when we're working with the deer hair. Alright, with that being said, let's get into the fly. So first things first, we're going to put on our rabbit strip. I've pre-cut mine. What you're looking for here is about 1.5 times the shank length. If you want to make it longer, make it longer. I wouldn't really recommend going shorter than that. But I'm going to walk my thread back to my tie-in point, which is just past the point of the hook ever so slightly. I'm going to measure this and kind of look and see where my tie-in point will be ultimately. And I just want to kind of put that bare leather strip. I've gone and peeled some of those fibers off that leather strip so I have a good tie-on point. I want it to be kind of right there on top of my lead. And for this lead, I've only done about 6 turns. If you want to do more, you can do more, but basically what I want is just something to lock that cone in. And then a little bit of balance, but I've got plenty of weight with that with that tungsten cone, so adding more lead doesn't really I guess help us in any way, but it's mainly there to lock that in. That's what that's there for. In any case, here we go. Let's get this all lined up. To me, that looks pretty good, and what I actually am going to do is shorten this up just a tiny bit. Yeah, that looks good right there. So now I'm going to wet my fingers, divide the hair out that I'm going to tie behind, and just wrap over that strip. I'm going to do one loose wrap, a little bit tighter on the second, tighter still on the third. I'm going to peel that back. I'm going to come under here and do, I don't know, 6 turns just to lock that in. Now once we've got that, the next thing we're going to do is put in a dubbing loop. You can use pearl braid here, you can use polar chenille if you wanted to give it a different look, but in this case I am using a dubbing loop. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. This is about a 4-inch dubbing loop, maybe a little bit longer. 2 turns in front. Walk my bobbin around twice. I'm going to lock that down a couple turns. I'm just going to set this, I'll set this here for right at the moment. And the dubbing tool that I'm going to use, dubbing loop spinner rather, I'm going to use today is a Loon product. This is the dubbing loop spinner / gator grip. And for me and my money, that's my favorite dubbing spinner that I've found so far, for what it's worth. So I'm going to get that set for a second. I'm going to go ahead and walk my bobbin forward to about here, which is where I'm going to end with my dubbing. Put in a half hitch real quick. That's a little bit farther in front of where I wanted to go, but that's okay. Go ahead and park that. And my dubbing that I'm using is the Senyo's Fusion Dub in this crayfish nail color, or I guess they call it crusty nail. But that's the dubbing that I'm using, and what I want to do here is just go in and pick out a clump. A little bit goes a long way here, but I just want to divide this up a little bit. So I'm making stacks and pulling, making stacks and pulling from one hand to the next. Once I've got that worked in, forgot my wax. If I had wax, I would use wax on my dubbing loop right now, but I don't. It's okay, it'll be all right. I'm going to come in here, open up my dubbing loop, and then at this point you can kind of walk this around, get it where you want it. We don't want this to be super hairy or spiky, but just enough that you can see a little bit of flash, a little bit of color under there, and to dress the hook. Go ahead and spin that up. A little spin. I'm constantly putting tension on this. As I fiddle with this, as I spin it, I always want tension. I'm just going to come in with the bodkin, pick out some of those loose fibers a little bit. Turn, pick out, turn, pick out. It's looking pretty good. Keep in mind here that whatever we don't get on this initial turn and with the bodkin, we can go ahead and pick out later with a brush or a bodkin. I'm going to start to turn that on. You don't have to use the rotary vise here, but man, it sure is helpful. And I'm doing pretty close wraps here. I want this to be enough to camouflage all that thread pretty well. I'm coming up just behind my lead there. That's where I'll stop and secure that in. Go over this loop that we made once, twice. Mark it 8, dude. Once that's in, I'm just going to go back over the top of it, really secure it down. Looks pretty good. Next thing we're going to do is take our rabbit strip, go ahead and put that over the top as our little lid to our dubbing there. Looks pretty good. I got my fibers already out of the way. And then I'm just going to do once, twice, I think that's 3 times, and I'm going to go ahead and cover that up. Just enough wraps here to cover that up, however many that ends up being for you. I've already lost count, but it doesn't matter so much. Just cover that up to the best of your ability. I want to kind of create a little dam over my lead there. Try and grab that little piece. It's not wanting to go. There it goes. Cool. Next, we're going to come in with our rubber legs. For that, we are using, again, another Hairline product. This is the Fly Enhancer Brown Pumpkin Rubber Leg. Really great color. Lots of good shine to it as well. So for this, I'm just going to use a set of legs per side. Just going to divide it in half here. Right down the middle, 50-50. I'm going to cheat those legs up to where that rabbit strip is, and I just want to create sort of a line right underneath that rabbit strip. I don't want to build too much bulk here, but I do want to secure those legs in. So that's one set done, and we will trim this at the end, so your leg length will be a little bit shorter in the end ultimately. Whoops. Come in and do our next set. It's looking pretty good. And like I said, I'm just going to leave that for now. Well, maybe I'll trim it right now. Trim it now, leave it, whatever you want to do. But basically what you want to do is make these legs just shorter than your tail. And I kind of like to stagger the lengths. So my bottom set of legs I'm going to cut shorter than my top set. So now I've got one shorter, one longer. Just give it a little bit different look, a little bit different movement. Again, I'm going to come in here and measure this out, eyeballing it, angle my scissors to get those different lengths. That looks good to me. All right, now for the fun part. We're going to come in and grab our deer hair. So I am using, yet again, another Hairline product. This is dyed deer body hair in rusty brown. Whoops, from Hairline. I'm just going to grab a couple clumps here. About a pen's width. I will come in and stack this stuff. Once I've got it stacked, I'm going to come in, peel out all those extraneous fibers that we don't need, that are just adding a mess. Come in and grab that under fiber out of that deer hair. I'm going to take this first bunch, kind of measure this out, because what I'm doing is I'm creating kind of a sculpin-y look here, right? So I'm making a collar for this first bunch. I'm going to go ahead and let that spin, working this around. And if you don't nail it on your first go around, just know we're going to put in some subsequent bunches here. That's looking pretty good, but again, that's why we're using this GSP on this, because you can really, really apply some pressure here. That looks decent. Turn that just slightly. Now, come in with our second clump. In our second clump here, we're not really building a collar. I'm going to cut the bottom out. So you don't really need much of a collar. So with that being said, you don't have to stack this second clump, and you really don't need your tips. So I'm going to come in and get rid of those. Just going to set that here. It's looking pretty good. So I like to be as minimal as I can with this. If you want to stack in some more, by all means, feel free. I just really want to secure that down at this juncture. We're going to go ahead and whip. Then we can go ahead and start sculpting our head here. So to do that, I'm just going to push down my collar and use the cone as a guide. I'm just going to take off a little bit at a time, that way I don't take off too much. Of course, you can take some out, you can never put it back. I guess you could put it back, it'd just be a pain. And again, on this underside, I'm really going to be liberal with my cutting here, trimming. And I'm just using that cone as a guide to get my desired effect of the shape of that head that I want. And you can get as intricate with this as you want. I just like to have enough of a collar that it kind of looks like that sculpin-y look, and it also ends up being relatively close to the same taper as our cone. On the underside, I'm just going to come in here, get rid of that, get rid of that. Being careful to not take too much from the sides, because again, I do want that collar. I'm going to come in on that underside and make it relatively flat. Some people find it easier to take the fly completely out of the vise. Just hold it in your hand while you trim. I just like to have it in the vise. That way I can use the rotary function, and then if I need to, if I'm all shaky, I can use this hand as a guide. You know, some days you sit down, you drink too much coffee, and you start really shaking when you go to tie. If that's the case, you can use this hand as a guide so you don't overcracked, undercracked, whatever it may be. To me, that's looking pretty dang good. Just a couple of final tweaks here and we'll call it. There it is. And that is your Kiwi Muddler all done in rust. And as I mentioned before, you can do this in a number of different colors and sizes. For example, on this particular one, I did it in, I used that polar chenille rather than dubbing. Oh, that was something I forgot to do on this fly, but I forgot to put in this little hot spot of red. If you wanted to, additionally, you could definitely take about 4 strands of this crystal flash and put it under for a throat or some gills. This is red crystal flash from Hairline. You can throw that on underneath. It gives it a little bit different look in the water, and I find that those gills are sometimes helpful if you've got some really selective bass or trout. It's kind of nice. So you do it in that color. Here I've got kind of more a bass-centric style of that same approach with the chenille on the bottom. I just added in more Rubberlegs and that chartreuse color. Let's see, you could go in with a tiger striped orange if you wanted to, and some more legs, again kind of with bass in mind on that particular variety. And then more of your classic look is going to be this guy right here. This is more of a classic Kiwi Muddler form. I've got just some sparse Rubberlegs on there. I have a little hit of that red for that throat, and then I dub the body with white. If you pick up a genuine sculpin in real life, a lot of them will have this big white spot on their belly, so sometimes that's kind of nice to have. But that is the Kiwi Muddler in rust. It's a great fly. It's definitely one I like to fish a lot come steelhead season and trout season. Again, you can use it on both species with great success. Big fan of this fly. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And to pick up these products to tie this with, we will have a link in the description. So be sure to check that out and let us see your flies. Tag us on North 40 Fly Shop on Instagram. Show us what you catch with them. Hope you have fun with it. Thanks for watching.